Hello and welcome to this private kitchen roundtable discussion. Marieke de Bruijn, Allard, Buwalda and Jeroen de Rijk. Today we will be talking about being a session musician. My name is Ivo Witteveen, I'm a composer and music producer and I'm the host of this panel. Do you make a lot of money as a session musician? Well, in general, are session musicians in the Netherlands compensated fairly for their work?
Are we talking numbers now? It's not common in America. They don't do that.
What I do know is I always try to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
So I always explain to people that start or outside of the business. If you have a really good idea and it's your own project, there's no corporate money behind there,
Yeah, that's different.
Let's try and be creative and stay true to why you started in the music business in the first place. If the music and the ideas, and there's obviously nothing but maybe a bit of private money or so, let's please try and make it work. But once you work like in commercial land or sometimes movies, the guys who come up with in Porsche Cayennes and then you're talking to some person who says the budget is a real problem, then I would say, why don't you call a plumber and ask him or her to drive from this place in the country to the next place, have him or her work for like 7 or 8 hours, see what kind of an invoice you get. I also through the craft built some bridges to like this young guy that I was just talking about. As in, wow, what happens when you work with real live musicians? But the money is always an issue. One of the reasons for me, since we're talking about business, to start my own little company too, to not just be dependent on live as a session musician only or a live musician. Because once you start producing things yourself, you talk to other people about other possibilities. On another note, our actual fees have not changed in 15 years. I had trouble with a guy last year. I did a full day of recordings and sent the guy, a proper invoice. And, he said, no, I've never paid that much money to anyone. And I know he was lying. And it was a very sensible fee. And then I said, you know what? I'll change my invoice to what you think is reasonable. And then 200 euros went off the bill. Okay, bye-bye.
It's important to get your agreement with the producer before you're going to play, that it's clear. But yeah, I also had some things where I had to play a solo in half an hour. Everything was okay. And the producer said, wow, you earned your money very fast like this. I said, yes. I understand what you mean. The next time I play a really bad solo, I walk away, I take a coffee, and I play a little bit better. He went mad. This is not the way you talk to me. As I said, yeah, man, what are you talking about? It's you never get work anymore when you do like this. I said, but what are you saying? I have to play bad.
You have to explain that you're so fast because you have an instrument that is more or less your retirement money. Whole your life you have been practicing. Yeah. And to be able to do this, they need you to be there. So there's a lot of things you can explain to make it easier to get the money that is required for a session. I take the fees that are set by the bond.
The union. The
union, yeah. So it's good to take that as a beginning. For example, because we're sometimes with 4 or 10 musicians and I want all the others to be paid well. So I can just say, this is what I need to pay those people. Then I take one session fee, so not an hour fee. Just the session fee is always 3-4 hours. So when I'm done in half an hour or 1 hour, it's the same.
I think actually the producer should be happy if it's done in half an hour or an hour. I would be.
Yeah.
Saves time, and then it was a smooth session. Is it an international business? When you record at home, you could also record for artists abroad, or maybe I could hire a percussion player abroad.
The best news comes from your old network, I think. If you've done things with people that travel through Holland, or you worked with, or you were touring with them earlier in life, and with the hard disks and the servers and the Dropboxes and the WeTransfers, it becomes really easy to work internationally. And I'm very pleased to have been active and still am active, for people in Los Angeles and Iceland. We're only, Ivo, we're 15 minutes on a bike apart, or 20 minutes. But whether my tracks go to you, where your studio is, or to Reykjavik, it doesn't make any change. It's all based upon the network. For sure, the recording business is international, for as far as I'm concerned. Parts, the main work is done here.
How's that for the Dutch String Collective?
We don't play for foreign companies. I know that in every country you have string session players like we are. London has a very good string session culture, I would say. We play for Dutch composers and artists. The thing is, there is a big competition, as you said, with the big studio orchestras in Budapest and Prague. For films, there's a lot of strings necessary, and I know a lot of composers that go for small cues. They hire half an hour of this session orchestra. And then you got a full orchestra live played. The advantage of hiring us is that, of course, we're flexible, we're Dutch, and also we're better. So if you, for example, when there are difficult keys, then you can tell this orchestra is not as flexible as we are. It's kind of a problem. I'm trying to think of a way how we can compete with this. What can we do? We cannot play for less.
Well, you shouldn't do low wages.
No, we shouldn't.
What about rights? Composition rights, neighboring rights, anything that's relevant to session musicians?
Now, of course, we have the Sena and the Norma, and the Sena is done more for the playlist on the radio. I think 2-3 years ago, I went to a meeting from the Sena. I was hoping to get some clearance. You have this Spotify thing going on and the YouTube thing. And I played on a big hit. It's called Helium from David Guetta. This hit has, I think, it's 70 million streams or something like that. You should think Allard Buwalda is getting something out of that, But the Sena has no good connection with Spotify. They missed that bus, so to speak. I would personally think it would be 10,000 euros or 20,000.
Yeah.
It was 20. The CEO of Sena, he was sitting there. He was looking at his iPad, of course, and he said, "Actually, you are the only one session player. But I have some good news. It's not 20 anymore. It's 23."
Yeah.
Sena is good for the Dutch radio, etc. And Norma sometimes helps. Spotify is interesting if you doing your own stuff, like my son does, and your own composition. They missed, so to speak, the bus.
Have you ever felt that you contributed that much to a production that you ought to be a composer?
It happens a lot, of course. Yeah, but that's why you're hired.
Or should it be discussed?
It's mostly the producer brings the work, and sometimes he says, "Can you make some groovy thing with this?" And he has a little idea, and I'm going to work with that. And when you have this discussion, it's always difficult with producers. But sometimes you have, like, you think he didn't have anything, and now it's something. Yeah, it happens.
I had a discussion with the Sena about that. Actually, it's not well taken care of for the arrangers. As you can see, session musicians get some rights, like Sena. The producer gets half, the main artist gets half of the half, so quarter, and then the other quarter is for session musicians, but there's nothing for the person who makes the arrangement.
I think in this context, the producer is like the financial producer, not the musical producer.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Yeah, because the musical producer is like in the same situation as the arranger.
When it became clear that Sena was serious and interesting, so Sena as in for the English-speaking people, our neighboring rights organization, that once it became clear that producers, as in the musical producers, were not, in the game.
Of course, they deserve part of the neighboring rights. And whether that be BUMA, copyright or neighboring rights, there needs to be something, because indeed now it's solved by having people playing cymbals, drums, and bass drum.
Yeah, if you do a hand clap, then you're a musician. So I saw all these tricks happen.
So I made a point out of that in the Sena. Yeah. So we'll see.
I think we should be moving towards like a conclusion of this interesting conversation. Are there things that you want to add that we haven't covered, or some wisdom or advice you'd like to share?
There's a lot of good news too, and there's a lot of also business people that are who actually understand, or producers or songwriters or artists. So thank God I have quite a few examples of people that you can work with for years and years and years. There will always be a search for a balance in the fees. You do a demo for a little money, but once it becomes bigger, then you get the full amount. So there's thoughtful people too. That's what I would like to add. It's not all bad. And one thing no one can ever take away from you is your own creative input. I had to learn that's income within itself. That your own creativity that makes a difference, or your craft, for music, and you hear that music back, and you can be proud of that.
For me, it's like the world a little bit changed since the 90s, and I went all in the actual studios and working with the producers, and that situation changed in much more home recordings. But I think the result of the home recordings and with our own sound and arrangements, the outcome is much better for me.
Yeah, if I may add, I think it's exactly the craftsmanship that makes us important, and also that makes us vulnerable. And it is nice if that's protected in a way, which is with all vulnerable arts. It needs protection, and you need people to, like Allard said, you need people to tell other people that this is the one you need, like a good shoemaker or a good chef. You have to run a business on something that's very difficult to sell or explain. Mm-hmm. And we're not business people. We're just trying to make really good craft, in being really good in what you do. And that's a little scary sometimes, I think. And we just hope that we can keep doing this. Yeah. And we need to be doing this.
Yeah. So
very well said. Very well said.
Yeah, it's about the craft. That's why we all do it, like the love of the music and the craft.
That's why we got in.
Yeah.
We started because of love for music. We never started because of neighboring rights or having the conversation.
Let's make a passive income.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for this lovely conversation, and goodbye.